Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, a local bombshell is breaking in through a New Hanover County Board of Education race. We'll go through all of the very disturbing details coming up. And a good Thursday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand in your favorite podcast app by checking out the Nick Craig Show. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our program this morning is brought to you by Melissa Gott and her team over at the Law Group. Visit them online lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call. They finally got the order right there, 910-251-6088. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. We are just a few days removed from the primary elections. Those happened Tuesday night, maybe into the wee early morning hours of Wednesday, and we are already starting to see drama unfold in many races across the state of North Carolina. However, there is one taking place in New Hanover County that probably takes the cake as it relates to all of the controversy. An article running yesterday over at WHQR, that is the NPR affiliate in Wilmington, by Ben Shotman, has this headline: New Hanover County Democratic Party calls on candidate to withdraw over relationship with sex offender. That's the headline. And the story and the details just get incredibly disturbing. There's even a warning in the article, which I think is good to have here. Note, this article contains material that some readers may find disturbing or upsetting. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to describe it. So going through some of the details, looking at the election results in New Hanover County for the Board of Education, 4 seats available on both sides of the aisle, the Republican and Democrat side. And looking at the Democrat side, there were 6 candidates in the race. Top 4 go to the general. The candidate who came in 4th place, his name is Rick Sutherland. He, at least as of right now, will be going and is presumably going to the November general election. However, the article over here at WHQR reads as follows: Rick Sutherland, a candidate in the Democrat primary for New Hanover County School Board, is living with a convicted sex offender, a person with whom he also works and attends political events, which is coming as a surprise to Democrats in New Hanover County. Through the article, it says on Tuesday afternoon, after receiving an anonymous tip, WHQR examined state and federal law enforcement and court records, which confirmed that James Darius Osborne, who goes by James, Jaymes, is a registered sex offender, subject to a federal parole supervision due to connections stemming from an April 2020 offense in Virginia Beach. North Carolina sex offender and public safety records show that he lives at the exact same address as Rick Sutherland. So you've got a guy running for the New Hanover County Board of Education, who just, by the way, won in the primary Tuesday night, and he is living with a registered sex offender. And that in itself is incredibly disturbing. However, continuing. Asked about the nature of their relationship, Sutherland said that the two are friends. Both have worked for PTP Studios, a performing arts training studio based out of Thalian Hall, where Sutherland is the Dean of Performing Arts, and Osborne was listed as a teaching artist until Tuesday afternoon. Questions were emailed to this studio, PTP Studios, about Osborne. They didn't respond. However, Osborne, his bio, all of that has been wiped from the website. Now, this is an even more interesting piece of the story, because Thalian Hall, for those that are not familiar with it, is largely funded by the city of Wilmington and portions of New Hanover County. So this is, for all intents and purposes, a semi-public facility in which this situation, it's called Wilmington's Historic Thalian Hall Center for Performing Arts, and this facility has got this guy working there who is a registered sex offender, all being brought in by Rick Sutherland, a candidate for the school board. Sutherland discussed some of this with WHQR and Ben Shotman on Tuesday, saying both he and Osborne had experienced serious childhood abuse and that Osborne's story hadn't discouraged him from running and had in fact served as an inspiration. Osborne also offered his account of his arrest and guilty plea, which Sutherland called a, quote, wrongful conviction. Well, hold on a second here. These two things cannot exist at the same time. A guilty plea, that's when you, as the party accused, say, yes, I did something wrong. I'm going to plead guilty. Then Rick Sutherland, his, partner in all of this, says it's a wrongful conviction. Not if you plead guilty to it. Not if you tell a law-abiding, a legally binding court system, I'm guilty of this, and take a guilty plea deal, which is very common. Regardless, you took the guilty plea. If you truly weren't guilty of said charges, said crimes, then you wouldn't take a guilty plea. They also discussed their decision not to share information about Osborne's criminal record during the campaign, as Sutherland said he was sorry for not disclosing the information, but he blamed his inexperience as a candidate, saying that it was, quote, a steep learning curve. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the local Democrat Party is pushing forward. This is what Democrats have as their excuse. Oh, I didn't think it was relevant to bring up the fact that I have hired and am currently living with a convicted sex offender, even though I'm running for school board, the New Hanover County Board of Education, in which you are one of 7 parties responsible for the operation of the school system, and then blame it on, oh, I'm an inexperienced candidate. That is such a weak, lame excuse. Something that I don't know that any rational person would even begin to believe. Now, there is some truth to running for public office is a steep learning curve. I get that. While I've never run for office, I know and have talked to plenty of people that have, and there's no question about it. It is. This is basic common sense, however. There's a steep learning curve to running for office, sure. Being inexperienced as a candidate, sure. You didn't think it was relevant to disclose to anybody involved that you are living with a registered sex offender? You don't have to be a politician or an experienced political mind to understand that. And while the votes are still not finalized, the county canvass will happen next Friday. For all intents and purposes, Sutherland will be moving to the general election. Now, this is where the story gets real juicy. Several of Sutherland's Democratic colleagues privately expressed dismay and frustration after being caught off guard by the news, but have not publicly addressed it as of yet. This I call complete and total BS on. The idea that this story was not known prior to its publication Wednesday morning, I just don't buy. I don't believe. And you're not going to convince me to believe it. Local, potentially party officials within the New Hanover County Democrat Party absolutely knew that this was going on. These parties are tasked with making sure the candidates that are running for these elections are clean, making sure that these candidates are not going to have a controversy like this pop up. And the timing of this entire thing is dubious at best. I assume if I'm stepping out here, I would say they were hoping that he wouldn't win in the primary and this wouldn't come forward. But now that he's won, all of the sudden, anonymous sources are running to local media in Wilmington to blow the whistle on Rick Sutherland. They could have dealt with this well before. This information didn't just pop up Tuesday afternoon during Election Day. But because of Sutherland's success in the primary, now all of a sudden, all of these Democrats, and we'll hear from the New Hanover County Democrat Party here in a second, now all of a sudden, they've got all of these strong opinions. They've got all of these strong comments and takes on this situation. And I'm just not buying it. I'm just not going to buy it. It would appear blatantly obvious to me that people knew what was going on here. People knew of Sutherland's connection. They knew of Osborne's previous criminal record, and they just sat on it and waited and hoped that they didn't have to use it. But the primary results did not play out in their favor. Back to the story. Wednesday morning, the New Hanover County Democrat Party issued a statement in response to a request for comment from WHQR. The party chair, Jill Hopman, said that Sutherland failed to disclose information about Osborne to the party and are now calling on him to withdraw. Ain't that interesting? Ain't that something? And I'm supposed to believe that the Democrat Party chair had never heard even the rumor of this prior, that there was not even a whisper of this going on beforehand. Everybody just magically found out about this situation on Tuesday. I'm not going to buy it. Maybe that's the case. It doesn't seem very likely. It just doesn't seem to add up. Obviously, this had been a discussion. Obviously, people had been talking about it. But you and I are just supposed to believe this randomly came to light, happened to be on election day itself, and then published the morning after Rick Sutherland won. Wow, imagine my shock when you find out that's the case. So here's the statement. The New Hanover County Democrat Party affirms its full support of survivors of sexual abuse, particularly women and children, which is a shot at Sutherland and Osborne because they're both dudes. I don't want to make sure I don't misgender them. They appear to be males. I can't say that for certain here in 2026. We require all candidates to disclose any personnel or professional matters that could pose a risk to their campaigns, the community, or our party. No such information was disclosed to us. We only learned about Rick Sutherland's partner yesterday afternoon, and we are deeply disappointed and heartbroken by the reports. In our school district, with its very real, dark, and regrettable past, these crimes hit far too close to home. In the light of this new troubling information, we cannot support Mr. Sutherland's candidacy, and we are calling on him to withdraw from the race immediately. Party leadership will hold an emergency meeting later today to establish more extensive guidelines to vet candidates and to prevent anything like this from happening again in the future. Yesterday, during an interview with WHQR, Rick Sutherland said he would step down if it was, quote, clear that I need to step away. But on Wednesday, after being informed that the party had in fact asked him to step down, Sutherland said he would not. He said in a text message, quote, Hopman, referring to the chair of the local Democrat Party, nor anybody from the party has communicated that to me. I respectfully decline and refuse to be bullied into stepping down from doing what's right and what's necessary in this climate. I am ready to serve this community that I love, using my learned skill set to protect the already waning opportunities for the children in it. He continued by saying, I have done nothing wrong personally, and showing support for a constituent in the community, understanding their victimization, the road that led them there, and experiencing their personal remediation as an upstanding citizen post-incarceration is not wrong. Wow. My hope is that we stay focused on the core issues of support and advocacy for children in today's community by working on the policy and governance and less focused on the rehabilitation of survivors. I am honored to have earned my votes and look forward to this tremendous journey of doing the hard work to make sure every child is safe and supported in and around the schools, and that no child find themselves in situations similar to this. So now you've got a power battle going on within the local Democrat Party. You've got the leadership of the party saying, we had no idea this was the case. Now, it would appear, and based on both sides of this, that Sutherland did in fact not disclose this to the Democrat Party. He said he didn't, and he blamed it on inexperience, which is completely laughable. The party claims we asked candidates if they've got anything. They told us no. I don't necessarily believe that they didn't do any more research. But again, I come back to this idea, this concept that there was rumor and discussion about this. I mean, this could not have possibly just shown up on election day, ladies and gentlemen. Early voting goes on for what, like 3 weeks in North Carolina? Rick Sutherland campaigning, signs all over the place, advertisements running. It was a fierce battle, 6 candidates for 4 seats. And it just magically happened to publish the morning after he wins the election. Something does not add up there, right? You go back to the old smell test. Something smell a little funky here? I think so. Something definitely is off with this story. So here's the legal background. In 2020, Osborne was charged with over 10 counts of possessing child sexual abuse imagery, including several felony counts, according to Virginia criminal records. The state case was dropped, but he was later indicted on 2 related charges of possessing and transporting child sexual abuse images in federal court. So we're talking about child pornography. That's what we're talking about here. Osborne pleaded guilty to 1 count of possessing child pornography, and in April of 2021, he was sentenced to 36 months in prison and 15 years of supervised release. The court imposed a host of special conditions for that release, including treatment, polygraphing, and monitoring for sex offenders. Osborne is also prohibited from engaging, quote, in employment or volunteer services that allow him access to computers or minors, which is an interesting thread. We'll come back to that. He is forbidden from possessing any pornographic material or pictures displaying nudity or any magazines until using juvenile models or pictures of juveniles, and from having contact with minors unless supervised by a competent informed adult approved in advance by a probation officer, a PO. According to the court records, he was released from prison in January of 2023 and registered as a sex offender at his current address in Wilmington. According to the Board of Election Records, Osborne and Sutherland live at the same address, which was in fact confirmed by Sutherland. So you've got a guy who was, as well, I guess was Rick Sutherland described it, a not legitimate verdict, even though he pled guilty in federal court to having child pornography, access to that, and moving or trafficking some of those images. Not immediately clear what exactly that is. This is obviously, as you can imagine, a deeply disturbing story, and one that any rational human being would say, yeah, this is a major problem. On Tuesday, Sutherland and Osborne acknowledged that they talked about potential complications in Sutherland's campaign due to Osborne's criminal history and sex offender status, with Osborne saying, I can't say it wasn't going to be an issue. Obviously, it would be an issue, especially because it's public record. Sutherland said that Osborne's story did resonate with one of his top priorities, the safety of children. So the guy who is living with a sex offender has now got this policy of, or his top priority, safety of children, with Sutherland saying, that's why we need resources in our schools from sex education, consent education, understanding predators, understanding the cues, so that we know and know who to go to, who we can trust, that's going to defend the victims so that victims do not receive the blame for the ills of society. Sutherland also acknowledged he was more focused on unseating Republican school board candidates. Asked about the decision not to share Osborne's story with the Democrat Party and fellow candidates, Sutherland said he was, quote, not a politician and not sure what I was supposed to be sharing with regards to those details. So he really doesn't care about anything. He admitted that to WHQR radio. He didn't care about school board. He doesn't care about supporting children in New Hanover County. He cares about unseating Republican school board candidates. Typical for the left. No ideas at all. Just orange man bad, Republicans bad. We need to beat them. This guy is a complete and total clown. And this is who the Democrat Party in New Hanover County elected. You didn't think the Democrat Party was screwed up enough. Well, hopefully this story is a great indication of truly what is going on over there in the Democrat Party. All they care about, Rick Sutherland literally said it, all they care about is unseating Republicans. That's it. What do you plan on doing to help X, Y, or Z? I don't know. Just got to beat Republicans. It's a terrible platform to run on. That is not an individual that you would say is somebody that would probably be a good addition to the school board. Oh, I'm inexperienced. I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. That's what he already admitted, and now says he was more focused on just beating those gosh darn Republicans. Because, when the rubber meets the road, That's all that matters, regardless of you harboring a sex offender, bringing him into Thalian Hall with access to children. Nah, none of that matters. Just got to beat those darn Republicans. It's really the mantra of the modern Democrat Party. This story is absolutely wild. And the fact that a guy who now has won the primary in Rick Sutherland, who was one of the top 4 vote getters in the New Hanover County Democrat Party primary just a couple of days ago. And the excuse is, well, I'm inexperienced. I didn't know that it would come out. And I don't really care about any of this. I'm just more focused on beating Republican candidates is insane. He addressed the frustration and surprise in his party, telling WHQR, I hold myself accountable to that, and I sincerely apologize to the entire Democrat Party and to everyone in the public. That was not my intention. Of course, what a surprise. No ability to accept accountability. This is also one of the major mantras of the Democrat Party. Nothing is ever their fault. Nothing is ever their responsibility. It was a huge learning curve for me, and this is a huge learning curve for anybody when they're trying something new, doing something new, and especially when they're doing something when it is the right thing to do. So I do apologize, and I do understand how this may look. Oh, well, that's good. You don't think it's a good look that you're running for school board and you're living with a registered sex offender? Really? You do understand how this looks? Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page as this. But I don't apologize for being a human. Oh, okay. Doing something new where I am learning, and I don't apologize that when questions are asked, I do answer them. Wow. What a statement. Sutherland said that he would have, quote, future conversations with the chair of the county Democrat Party and others in the party when asked what he would do if the party asked him to withdraw from politics, which he already said. Sutherland said in a quote, that would be considered in discussions so that we're all clear. But if it seems clear that I need to step away, I don't have a problem with that, but that's not going to stop me for fighting for victims. This guy's nuts. I mean, this guy's certifiably crazy, certifiably insane. Says he's fighting for victims, yet this is the background. I mean, I just went through the court records in the state of Virginia, which were published in this article over at WHQR. Now, Osborne has a side of the story. Osborne told WHQR when he was young, around the ages of 11 or 12 years old, he was kidnapped, drugged, and sexually abused while living in Florida. However, WHQR could not find any independent record of the abduction. However, as part of his federal court case, Osborne's brother Richard wrote a character letter confirming that that situation had taken place. Osborne said he learned that in 2017 that the abuse had been video recorded and distributed, telling WHQR, I found out from a gentleman that I had met online that he had basically let me know that he had seen the video of me out there. I had no idea that this existed when I was taken and I was drugged, and then from there on, don't remember very much. Osborne said learning this was extremely traumatic, but eventually set about trying to find a copy of the video. According to Osborne, he used a Telegram messaging app to access large number of images, which court records suggested over 13,000 images and videos were on his phone. Osborne said he found he couldn't handle sorting through the thumbnails looking for videos of his much younger self, telling media, I couldn't stomach looking at this. 3 minutes go by and I'm like, I can't effing, excuse my language, I can't effing do this. I immediately deleted Telegram. Osborne said he was unaware that the material had been saved to his phone's memory card, which is not true. Later, after Osborne was involved in an altercation in Virginia Beach, police searched his phone and found the illegal material. Let me just explain this because I know how this stuff works. I have a tech background, I have a computer science degree. When you install an app like Telegram, 13,500 images do not automatically save to your phone. They don't. If that was the case, nobody would be able to use Telegram because anytime you joined a channel, it would automatically download every single image that would be in there. Your phone's internal or external memory would be immediately full. That is not how this works. You don't join, I'm in Telegram channels. None of the images, unless I go out and save them, go to my phone. That's how that works. It's the same thing with, It'd be like saying you scrolled through Twitter and all of a sudden all of the posts were magically saved to your phone. That's not how that works. All of that stuff is stored elsewhere. It's encrypted and stored elsewhere. So something with that, you don't just magically get 13,500 images, some of which, not immediately clear how many, but some of which included child pornography. Those don't just automatically download to your phone. We've seen that defense play out in the court systems over the last 30 or 40 years, right? We've seen this in the early eras of the internet. These sick perverts would do this exact same thing. The internet's brand new. I have no idea how all of these images randomly got saved to my hard drive. I have no idea. We've seen this ignorant excuse before. That's not the case, and the courts obviously understand this isn't the case either. Hence in point why they charged him, and then he eventually pled guilty. If this truly was not the situation that unfolded, I don't know why he would have taken a guilty plea. So again, he said that he did not know that these were saved on his phone's memory card, but even though he didn't know the images were there, the Virginia Beach police were able to unlock his phone and they were able to find the images. So presumably they were relatively easy to deal with. Osborne said he was cooperative with authorities, which court records support, who eventually put him in touch with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who connected him with a group called Take It Down, a free service that helps people remove exploitation and abuse images from the internet. Osborne noted that it was a difficult time, which is backed up by various court documents. It was hard to convince officials that his story was legitimate. Because he had been living in California, he was considered a flight risk by Virginia authorities who kept him in detention. It was during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and during this time, his mother passed away. What is the relevance of that? I mean, what is this? The article at this point is what? A full-on, full-throated defense of this guy? He's from California. He's pulled over by Virginia Beach police. Whatever situation unfolds, they find a bunch of child pornography on his phone, and you're supposed to have sympathy because this was during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic? Oh, and his mother died during that time? I mean, what is this? What is the relevance of this to the story at all? You were in an online chat looking at child pornography, whether it was to find your video that exists or not is irrelevant. But it's like you're trying to build sympathy up for this guy. Come on. Osborne said that he was willing to take responsibility for possessing the child abuse material, even though it had not, from his point of view, been intentional. Again, we've seen this before. He prevailed on the court to sentence him to time served. The prosecution, which did note that Osborne had been cooperative, asked for 6.5 years, followed by a lengthy period of supervised probation. In the end, a judge issued a lighter sentence. Osborne also agreed to pay $6,000 in restitution to the victims who appeared in the illegal imagery. Osborne noted his standing in the community, including the most character witness letters that the court had ever seen. Court records support that, showing 17 people, including his brother, writing letters of support. While Osborne freely pleaded guilty, which is an important fact, he did it with the understanding that it would help him avoid a more severe sentence. He said he still felt that the outcome was, quote, victim blaming, saying that he'd never been given the resources necessary to deal with his traumatic past. So yeah, the guy downloading child porn is the victim in all of this. That's the article. That's the argument that is trying to be built at this point. Victim blaming. Nothing about the victims of all of the 13,000 images that Osborne had downloaded on his phone. Those children, those minors, they're not the victim. Osborne is truly the victim in all of this. This whole thing is disgusting. And this weird victim mentality is just so unabashed. He openly and publicly pled guilty, doing this to avoid a more serious sentence, which if his story backed up that magically 13,000 images just randomly downloaded to his phone, if that was the case, I don't know why I didn't fight it in court. But nevertheless, even though he willingly took the guilty plea, which, by the way, a court will ask you if you are making this decision in a right mind, if you've been forced into this, they ask you all of these questions. He still pled guilty, and now he says that he's the victim. What the hell is wrong with the Democrat Party? This is who Democrats are coalescing behind? This is who Democrats are inviting to Thalian Hall as employees that could have access to minors, which seemingly is in violation of his parole. But, I mean, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to go down that road. What the hell? And then, of course, the more interesting side of this story, which I'll continue over after the break, is the fact that nobody seemingly knew about this until Election Day, which, as I've already stated, does not pass even the most basic of smell tests. We'll get into more of the details on this disturbing story coming up here in just a couple of minutes, including Osborne's final comments, which really is trying to build the argument here that even though this guy had 13,000 child pornographic images and videos on his phone, he's truly the victim in this entire case. Typical Democrat. Absolute typical for the Democrat Party. What a disgusting situation. So we'll continue those details coming up here in just a couple of minutes. I do want to remind you about the law group here in Wilmington and thank them for their support of the Nick Craig Show. I had the opportunity of using the law group a little over almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years here this summer in helping me navigate through the process of purchasing my home. First-time home buyer, was not immediately clear exactly what the process was, what I was required to do, what I wasn't required to do. So I reached out to Melissa Gott and her team to help me walk through that process. They were top-notch, helped me deal with any problems or issues that arise, and I want to remind you to reach out to them. Give them a call, 910-251-6088, or visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. Quick break. We'll continue with this very disturbing story and already complete and total chaos as the New Hanover County Democrat Party school board primary is already imploding less than 2 days after Election Day. Those details coming up as the Nick Craig Show rolls on this 7 o'clock this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Good Thursday to you. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time here as we continue with our primary coverage. We'll continue with that over the next couple of days, especially as we approach the county canvass process, which is going to be taking place across North Carolina next Friday. Provisional ballots are expected to be voted on by Board of Elections tomorrow on Friday. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that, especially up in North Carolina's 26th, the Senate District. That is where Phil Berger is currently running and is 2 votes behind Rockingham County Sheriff Sam Page. So we'll continue with those details as we work through the next couple of days. But back to this very disturbing story in New Hanover County in Wilmington. There is a Democrat candidate, as we've been talking about, who just won in the primary. His name is Rick Sutherland. And this bombshell story drops Wednesday morning, published by Ben Shopman and WHQR Media. That's the NPR affiliate in Wilmington, highlighting that Rick Sutherland, the fourth top vote getter, he was in fourth place, which means he will move on to the general election, is currently living with a registered sex offender who, as we just went through some of the details, has these charges back in Virginia, pled guilty to some of these charges in federal court. And as I was just mentioning before the break, Osborne is trying to spin this into, he's said, quote, this is victim blaming, even though he pled guilty to having these images on his phone. Then this last statement from him really gets me. There's not even a semblance of my old life now, said Osborne. I've had to relearn how to live, being a black gay man in this society who's gone through the prison system where there is already such a stigma behind African Americans and queers and people with mental health issues. You name it, there's a stigma for it. So for me, I'm glad, but I'm also a little saddened that, Rick has felt this impassioned, like this is part of his platform. And let me make this point clear. And there's some comments coming in this morning that I want to address. One well written that says victims are often perpetrators of the same thing that they've endured. That is absolutely a fact. And if you start looking at some of the statistics on individuals that do go down this path and are either in possession of things like child pornography or abusing children, yes, there is a very strong correlation with these individuals that have had their own experiences much earlier on in their life. And that is unfortunately a sad reality. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to put myself in that position. I fortunately was not ever put into a situation like that. I do have a level of compassion with this. No question about it. I can't possibly imagine that situation. I know many that have and understand the seriousness of it. However, it does not excuse these actions. It's not, to me, a good excuse. It's just not. And for, Rick Sutherland to make this comment or these comments that, oh, well, I didn't bother telling anybody about this because I'm new to the political sphere and I'm inexperienced. I'm sorry, folks. It doesn't add up. I refused to believe that. And so if I'm in the wrong, then so be it. I just refuse to believe that. This is one of the most serious things that you can be accused of in modern society. I mean, it really is. You look at the level of criminality that exists, and when you're stack ranking, what crimes are worse than others, individuals that have abused children is at the top of the list by any metric, by any stretch of the imagination. And so to plead this level of a total ignorance on this situation and blame it on inexperience, I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that. And then, of course, the timing of this whole thing is just incredibly dubious. And so if you need to refer to me as a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, then so be it. But Osborne had been out and about with Sutherland campaigning for this election. I am in political circles. I'm actively involved in political circles in and throughout the state of North Carolina. When there is some level of controversy, some level of drama, some level of rumor, that stuff spreads around like a wildfire. Before there's any media report, before anybody's posting about it on Facebook, before anybody's blowing the whistle, there is rumor, there is discussion, there is chatter. That's what politics is. And not even outside of politics, there's a lot of this stuff. People love talking. And so at the same time as this story is published, I don't necessarily know that I believe that nobody knew about this until it came to light Tuesday morning. Now, whether, I don't know exactly who knew about it or when they knew about it, but I just refuse to put myself in a situation where I have to believe that, oh, this just magically popped up on election day. Oh, wow. Nobody knew about this at all. Nobody had done any opposition research on Rick Sutherland, not the 5 people that were running against him, not the Democrat Party in New Hanover County, which is supposed to check on I presume, I'm not actively involved in the New Hanover County Democrat Party, but presumably does a little bit of background on their candidates and checks everything out. That nobody knew about this? It was a whistleblower going to WHQR, an unnamed individual, which is fine. I understand the media business. I'm not here to try and drag a source through the mud on this. I understand how that's how that process works. Something just doesn't add up. It is not mathing, for lack of a better phrase or a better term. There's something that is off here. And the fact that Sutherland just happened to be successful in the primary, this story drops. And it's obvious what's going on now. The Democrat Party wants to force him out. They want him to drop out of the race so that they don't have to endure this as we approach November. And the reason, in all likelihood, that this came out now is so that they can do it now, right? Because they don't want to have this black cloud hanging over the entire Democrat Party for this school board race as we approach November. So they drop it now. They put the information out now because it's, the beginning of March. And so you've got plenty of time to get this thing dealt with. And so the question is coming in, if he steps down, what happens? Yeah, well, then the Democrat Party would get to appoint somebody else to run in his position. The ballot has not yet been printed. Obviously, that won't be printed for months. It'll be late summer before the ballot is put together for the general election. I mean, the election's not even certified yet. And so that's exactly what will happen. If Rick Sutherland drops out or any other candidate drops out, they have the ability to be replaced by the executive committee of in this case, it would be the Democrat Party. If this was on the Republican side, it would be the same thing. The party in which the individual filed and ran has the ability to appoint. Typically, it is the responsibility of the executive committee of that party to make that decision. And they've got 2 other candidates that just lost in the primary election. So they've got people right on the bench for it. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what Rick Sutherland does with all of this. Obviously, the Democrat Party wants to force him out. But there's another comment coming in saying if this guy doesn't drop out, plenty of Democrats will still vote for him with full knowledge of his skeletons. Yeah, that's also probably part of the sad reality of this. This is a major problem for the New Hanover County Democrat Party. This is a major problem for Rick Sutherland. And it's, I would argue, a major problem for the community as a whole. That these things are presumably known beforehand and just magically stay behind the scenes until night of the election, till election day itself, according to the article, is when an anonymous source dropped this information on local media. That's pretty concerning for me as well. If you know that somebody that is running in a election is in this situation and all of this backstory, which we just went through, it's incredibly disturbing, and you don't say anything about it, there's a problem there too. So how exactly this thing resolves itself, I'm not clear right now. I mean, if I was betting on this thing, I'd say that Sutherland probably drops out sooner rather than later. And I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I would imagine those conversations are taking place right now. And again, if it's going to happen, it's probably going to be soon so that the Democrats can claim they've moved on from this issue. It's a very sad and disturbing story. And at the exact same time, there are a lot, to me, even more questions than answers as to how this thing came to light and how magically nobody knew about this thing prior to an article being published early Wednesday morning. Again, call me a conspiracy theory if you must. But I've been in this game long enough to know how these things typically play out. This is a very, very bizarre, very, very odd story. You can read the full write-up. It's over at WHQR.org. I'll throw the link to it in our show notes. It's obviously the top story there. Local media has other local media outlets have picked up on this as well, including WECT and WWAY. So it is now played across the entirety of New Hanover County. We will keep an eye on this and see what goes on here in the days and weeks to come. As, again, a Democrat running for school board didn't seem to think that it would be a big deal that he was actively living with a registered sex offender while running for school board. You don't have to be a 30-year political veteran to understand that for most individuals, that is going to be something that is not taken very well. That is going to be something that is likely to draw a pretty strong amount of scrutiny. We're talking about somebody that is a registered sex offender, had more than 13,000 images on his cell phone depicting some level of either child abuse or child pornography. Very, very serious stuff. So if nothing else, it shows that, in this case, Rick Sutherland is a complete moron for not thinking that this is a big thing that needs to be discussed and maybe laid out in front of the Democrat Party beforehand or the public. This ignorance, oh, I'm new to this, I'm trying something new, is complete bullshit. I don't buy it for a second. I don't care if you're fighting for victims. None of those excuses matter to me. This is as common sense as it possibly can get. And this, oh, I had no idea shtick is complete bullshit. And I'm just not buying it. And this, oh, I'm truly the victim and all this, I'm not buying that either. I'm not buying it. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how the local Democrat Party deals with this in the days and weeks to come. We'll keep an eye on it right here on the Nick Craig Show. Well, that's going to do it for a Thursday edition. Did not have this on my bingo card 48 hours after the primary. We'll keep an eye on those details. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support of the program. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. It's also available in your favorite podcast app and can be heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.